Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. U.S. officials tonight believe the nuclear disaster in the heart of Soviet farmland began Saturday and isn't over yet. Amid widely conflicting casualty reports, a U.S. spy satellite photo today picked up some of the physical damage. Defense Department correspondent David Martin reports tonight that photo showed this: a gaping hole in the reactor building roof, caved-in walls, smoke rising from the reactor building in what is apparently a still out-of-control fire. Much remains unknown. In this unfolding nuclear nightmare of an atomic reactor gone wild near Kiev, this is what we are hearing tonight. A United Press International report, so far unconfirmed, that more than 2,000 may be dead. Soviet government-controlled television officially puts the number of dead at 2. In Sweden, as elsewhere, officials are convinced there was a nuclear reactor core meltdown at Chernobyl. They say radiation may still be spewing into the air. At an airport in Finland, an arriving passenger from Kiev tells of taxis and buses being commandeered. Purpose? Evacuating thousands from the danger zone. The radiation cloud, at last report, is blowing back over Soviet territory before being dispersed worldwide. U.S. government trackers are monitoring radiation levels in all 50 states. First wave expected in this country this weekend in the West. No danger to people in the USA predicted. And the Soviets have appealed to Sweden and West Germany for help. United States offers to give Moscow technical and medical help still go unanswered. That United Press International report of mass death from the atomic reactor disaster comes from a woman in Kiev. She is described by UPI as someone with contacts in Soviet rescue and health circles. The woman said 80 people died immediately. 2,000 more, she told UPI, died on the way to hospitals. One hospital in Kiev, this woman said, and I quote, is packed with people who suffer from radiation sickness, end quote. There is no independent confirmation of any of that. The tightly controlled Soviet government media are telling their own people next to nothing. They admit officially just 2 deaths. Our correspondent reports begin with Wyatt Andrews in Moscow.
For most of the day, the Soviet policy was silence. Despite an admission that an accident had happened, there was no coverage, nothing in the Soviet morning newspapers. Only Radio Moscow, a station aimed mostly at foreign audiences, reported a disaster, saying this:
efforts are being applied to eliminate the consequences of the accident and help the victims.
Tonight on the 9 o'clock news, the first detailed confirmation of one of the worst nuclear accidents ever. 2 dead, went the report, a radiation leak that had been stabilized, the evacuation of a town and 3 villages, and other victims getting medical attention. It is clear there is much more here that is not being reported. On the streets of Moscow, the reaction was predictable, a public mostly unaware. I didn't manage to see that, this man said, and then he added, was that the accident in America? Both the Swedish and Danish embassies sent envoys to the Soviet Foreign Ministry today, asking the Soviets to be more forthcoming. Even today, Soviets reached on the telephone were saying that nothing was wrong in Kiev, a woman at an in-tourist hotel.
City is full of tourists, different countries. The hotel is full. Nothing happens. A normal day.
But the calm Soviet front on this story is being challenged now, even in the Eastern Bloc. Polish television tonight warned all of its citizens to wash all fresh vegetables, and some milk sales, the warning went on, will be restricted because of possible contamination. Despite hints that the Soviets are growing more open with public information, it's likely that international detection and not a sense of openness forced the Soviets into admitting this accident. The same Soviet propaganda machine that called the space shuttle accident an example of why America can't be trusted with technology is in no rush now to herald any Soviet technological mistake. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Moscow.
In Stockholm today and throughout Europe, scientists monitoring the aftermath of the nuclear accident said they're certain the core of the Soviet reactor has melted down. By far the worst nuclear accident in history.
I'm absolutely certain there was a meltdown. There's no question about that.
The Soviets have turned to Sweden and West Germany, 2 countries well-versed in nuclear technology, for advice on how to fight the fire raging in the core of the reactor.
The Soviet officials came to see us asking for advice on possible contacts for help on reactor accidents on the one side and on graphite fire on the other side.
That means they're in real trouble. It's very unusual for the Russians to ask for help. Even if they have a ship sinking, they're reluctant to ask for help.
But the Swedes could only tell the Soviets to contact Great Britain, where the last graphite fire hit the Windscale nuclear plant in 1957. In London today, radiation levels were completely normal, but only the weather saved Western Europe from wider contamination.
Undoubtedly, had the wind been in a different direction, then yes, certain parts of Western Europe would have been affected by it.
In Sweden, radiation has begun to fall from levels that reach 10 times the normal readings. Officials stress there was never any great danger. Some Swedes flocked to pharmacies buying iodine pills to ward off the effects of radiation, but most showed little concern.
I feel it's an accident, but I don't think we are in a danger.
We're so used to living with the threat that we don't even react to it anymore.
The sheer scale of the disaster will undoubtedly produce demands for stricter controls on nuclear power. Already, the Swedes are calling for all nuclear programs to be placed under international supervision. Derek Blakely, CBS News, Stockholm.
U.S. officials said tonight they are convinced the Soviet reactor building is still on fire, graphite burning 4,000 degrees hot. It is their view that it will keep burning for days and that nothing can be done to stop it. Among the biggest dangers now, contamination of the Kiev water supply. Susan Spencer has been looking at the design of this Soviet reactor